I'm going to show you why manufacturing companies take 12 to 15 months to buy software and the 3 hidden dynamics that kill 60% of deals before they even get to procurement. After watching 20 different B2B companies crack manufacturing, including ERP consultants and logistic tech firms that were able to cut their sales cycles from 12 to 6 months, I've identified the pattern that separates winners from the walking dead. So I'm going to cover 3 things today. First, we're going to cover the 3-layer decision structure that's usually running the show in these manufacturing companies. We're going to talk about why month 7 is typically like the death zone, as usually where deals go to die. And third, the counterintuitive plant floor approach that cuts sales cycles in half. I'm going to show you. So here's what kills most manufacturing deals. Basically, when you're building out your ICP, start thinking through all their personas in the buying group here. You think you're selling to 4, 5, 6 people inside that buying committee, but really what you're selling to is 11 plus people minimum. And the ones with real power aren't even in the meetings. So check out my graphic here I put together. Shout out to Jen Spark for putting together these short little slides, super easy. So what you'll see here is basically like the visible committee is really the folks that you're typically think you're talking with. I'm talking about the VP of operations, the CFO, the IT director, and these are the ones that you're getting your meetings scheduled with. Not typically the ones that are always the ones that hold the real power. So for example, the CFO could be nodding along in like their pitch, but they're calculating if the board needs approval. If it's $500K piece of software here, you're talking about another 3 months that needs to go through approval with the board. They're not really the ones that are always holding the keys. And a lot of times when we are building this out as part of our go-to-market, these are the people we end up focusing on. What we lack, and a lot of times we forget, there's this shadow committee here. And those are the ones like the plant manager, the one that's been there for 20 years, the ones that knows every machine inside the plant. This is someone that killed a deal in seconds, telling you he's just going to disrupt production. He's typically someone who has a direct line of contact with the CEO because he's been solving crises for 15 years now. Plant managers influence 73% of tech decisions, but attend 0% of vendor calls. I've never been on a call with a plant manager, but if you talk to the CEO, that's someone he's always in touch with, and that's frustrating, right? So if you're here talking to, you think you're talking just to the CFO or to a controller, really the ones that are holding real power here are these folks like the production supervisor. This is the one that controls the actual workers who are going to use the system you're probably selling. So, if this is something that the production supervisor thinks is going to slow us down, that's an immediate, red flag on for you. And this, typically where I see this, working in a food production industry, for example, a lot of these times in these 10 to 50 million companies, the owner's first hire could be this production supervisor, and it could be just a family member. So this is a easy place for sabotage. Now, 68% of plant workers typically don't have that digital literacy that we have all, if you're watching this video, you probably have. But everybody, the quality control lead is one of those people who are going to remember every single tech failure in the industry. They're ready to bring up every single disaster that may have happened to similar companies. They're the ones that remember what's happening in their company where there's been probably failed implementations. Here's another place, person you probably are forgetting. And here's the one that no one's probably talking about. This is the legacy IT guy. The guy that's been there for 15, 20 years, has a patchwork of all different systems, code. He's the one that took you out of the 2008 crisis. If he's building all these custom scripts, all these different duct tape kind of systems that are working together. He's the one that can really be the one that takes your project down. So, this one is a really place where you're going to think of the IT person's going to say, like, this doesn't work with our system, deal's dead. And here's where it gets interesting. And I didn't add this in here because it's not 100% of the time, but we need to talk about external consultants who are, coming into, to kind of talk through the situation, who are going to be the ones that add $500,000 to the. Now let's talk about where the real power structure is in a lot of these companies. This is the political layer. I'm talking about the 25 plus year executive that's 18 months from retirement. His pension really depends on no major failures in the company. This is the guy that's going to slow walk everything, right? He's always the guy that's going to want to take it to the next quarter. Who is this guy? Think about who are these people behind the scenes. On the flip side, who's talking about the rising star? The one that needs a quick win for promotion, the one that's pushing too hard, too fast, the one that you may think is your champion inside the company. This is the one person that you need to understand how far along they are and who their relationships are inside the company. Because this kind of ambition is great, but it also creates a lot of internal backlash. It can actually hurt your deal if that person's being too enthusiastic and doesn't have the experience inside the company. And now, I bet you didn't think about this group, but this is really the owner's inner circle. And these are the 10, the people that are going with the owner on golf trips. This is like, someone that, could be even a spouse that's advising on like expense decisions. Even the longtime customer that may be going to dinner parties with the owner, and they're the ones that don't want to make the change. They're going to be in their ear chirping. They're never in a meeting. They're always in the owner's ear. And that's where you don't really have a voice. And here's where it gets insane. It's not even in this decision-making iceberg. It's that consulting group they bring in. I'm talking about the McKinsey or the Deloitte or the small boutique consultant to validate their decision. So now you're not even selling to this group of people, these 11, 12 different people, some of them shadow figures inside the organization. Now you're selling to a consulting firm that's going to bill them another $100,000 to tell them what they already know. So now you understand the three layers: the official committee, the shadow committee, the political layer. But here's the problem. Each of these people need completely different messaging. Your VP of operations wants efficiency. The plant manager wants zero disruption inside of the plant. Your production supervisor just wants some happy workers. The IT guy, he wants to protect the system. So where a lot of messaging doesn't work here is because you're taking your one message, your one position statement, your message, and you're bringing this through the entire buying committee. Now, I've mapped out the exact language that resonates with each of these roles in my manufacturing stakeholder messaging matrix, and it shows you precisely what to say to the plant manager versus the CFO versus the IT guy. Link in the description. Check it out. It's free. Download now. Okay, so now let me show you why these deals take a year, 15 months to close. And that's actually the fast version. You've probably been through it. Most of these companies you're looking at a year and a half, 2 years. Okay, back to my slide here. So really what's happening? In this first couple months where, you just pitched, the committee is just getting set up to review. You've kind of they're still not evaluating your solution. You need to think about this. They're learning what's even possible. A lot of internal education alone just takes 45 days. So they're teaching each other, not learning from you. So this could be the IT director is explaining the cloud to the plant manager. It could be finance is just figuring out if it's more of a CapEx or OpEx type of expense. If it needs board approval, or it could be just a department budget. A lot of dancing's going around here internally. So manufacturing, we know that they are planning budgets in Q3, Q4 for next year. So if you miss that window, you may have to wait another 12 months So these are some of the things in play here to start thinking about when you get that meeting. And the next phase, these what I would say, the next 3, 4 to 6 months. This is where that reference call reality comes in. You're going to be on the hook to find 5 different reference calls. A lot of the manufacturers want to hear about references in the same industry, similar sizes. So you got to have those references that line up. And this is another great opportunity to remind you to really understand who your ICP is. If you don't understand that, if you're not really niche down, this is where it becomes a little more difficult. You really can build up a lot of trust here, where you have the references that are just complete, exactly like what they need. So they want to, really find that, this is where a lot of the internal politics is coming into play. The production supervisor and maybe gathering some worker opinions. The controller, the CFO has him running worst case scenarios, or him working with the plant manager to calculate some downtime risk. This is the time where the owner is calling their peer group, and you're kind of left in limbo here. You may even see a lot of times during this time, there's some compliance or legal review, and we all know how long this takes. Legal doesn't understand the cloud, or they don't understand where their data is physically located. This is the kind of time where you might start, if things start going well. Now you're halfway through the year. Maybe they now you're start talking about maybe there's a time for a pilot. You want to do another 3-6 month pilot, and I would even consider the pilot part of that sales cycle. The total time, if the sale is 12 months now, and you're another 6-month pilot, now you're a year and a half in. And the pilot often becomes that permanent test mode where you can't even actually build out a whole plan or start working and showing real optimizations. And this is some stats to remember here. 70% of ERP implementations fail to even deliver ROI, and these are some of the reasons why. There's a lot of that risk averse, and I think a lot of that risk aversion internally creates a lot of the failures. 60% of ERP implementations are complete failures, and there's a number of reasons for this. We'll have to have a whole video on that. But everyone knows someone internally that has been fired for a bad tech choice. So there's a lot of hesitation to make a big transformative purchase inside of that company. And now let me tell you where that turns up into. That turns into the dead zone, where I call the dead zone, where these deals go to die. That's where the champion that you're working with gets promoted or leaves after so long. Now you need to start over again. You need to build up your whole internal team again. There's a budget freeze. So now all the unrelated crisis is potentially freezing all your spending. They could have lost a major client. Now you're back to square one, or you're back to maybe another 6 months, another 12 months. There's always priority shifts, and especially now with a lot of maybe a lot of economic uncertainty here. Or there could be acquisitions or mergers. The deal can quickly get pushed from this year to next, and that's basically just killing the deal. So, around this time, there's a lot of internal fatigue. The excitement has gone away, and then there's that fear of change resurfaces. Every single week and month that passes here, there's always going to be more uncertainty. Another reason to say no, and it always becomes easier to say to just do nothing. And that's why I think the traditional approach fails here, because you're starting at the C-suite. You're basically setting yourself up death by committee. You're trying to bring a strategic vision that's too abstract for manufacturing. 74% of manufacturers have decentralized decisions, and you're playing for a centralized decision. you're betting on a big implementation, a total transformation, which means total risk. You're pretty much fighting the system and you're going to lose. Now, here's the part that no one's talking about, the acceleration path, where I think you can get your deal done in 6 months. And this is where we've seen it. You go straight to the plant manager. You show immediate operational benefit. You reduce the changeover time by 20 minutes, and then you provide one quality issue per week. And that's something that's concrete, measurable, and immediate. So what I would do, and I would just think about this, something under $50,000, where you can, price a phase one kind of discretionary spending limit under the discretionary spending, and like where there's no board approval needed. You can get the plant manager to say yes today. So think about how do you get started with one production line or one operational improvement. Sell it as a small optimization rather than a complete digital transformation that becomes less scary. Think of coming in as a crawl, walk, run type of close. Phase one. This is a phase one play. $45,000. For 45 days, you can get something done. And then you could take it to a full plant rollout. Then you can take it to the full enterprise deployment. That's $1 million purchase. So now you're the incumbent. Each phase you're kind of building, you're giving them less and less risk, building more and more trust. So for an example here, we were working with a logistics company that was stuck in this 12-month cycles in these selling cycles. We switched to that plant floor approach. We started with $45,000 pilot on the receiving dock. Within 45 days, the plant manager saw a 30% efficiency gain. So who became our biggest advocate? The production supervisor. So we bypassed the corporate committee entirely until the results were proven. So we got the job done. We were able to kind of avoid all these different levels of approvals. We were able to show some real great results. And then the full deployment happened in 6 months because the success was visible, it was measurable, and the plant manager became like our internal salesperson. So guys, this isn't some kind of like theory. This is just how you want to cut manufacturing sales cycles in half. How do you do it? You got to start at the plant floor. You got to price under discretionary spending limits, and you got to turn those plant managers into champions. But here's the thing. None of this works if you can't get that first meeting. So, skeptical plant manager is always going to be the one he's seen every vendor promise fail. He sees all your cold emails. He sees your same old ads. So in these coming videos, I'm going to show you exactly the messages and how to build out a message using our framework that helps you get 20-year manufacturing veterans to respond and actually give them some value off the top so that they're ready to bring you in for these larger engagements. This isn't corporate buzzword lingo or none of that. So click here. So our next video, so keep following SparkPoint. I'm going to show you how exactly to use our revenue framework, messaging framework to get people to respond and actually show real value. Don't forget to subscribe now.